Hi everybody, this is Ross Owen here. I'm in Culver City, Los Angeles. I'm about to go on a tour of some of the famous Laurel and Hardy filming locations. I'm about to meet Bob Satterfield, former Grand Sheik of the Way Out West tent, and he's going to show me around. So stay with us, don't go away. So welcome to this special edition of the Laurel and Hardy podcast. I'm here in Culver City with the one and only Bob Satterfield, the former Grand Sheik of the Way Out West tent. How are you, Bob?
I'm doing great. Anytime I'm in Culver City, it's a great day.
Now you've got lots of plans in store today. We're in a very prominent location. You're going to take me around some of the famous filming locations. What's in store today?
Well, this is actually the heart of Laurel and Hardy land. So you're going to see locations from Putting Pants on Phillip, from Duck Soup, from Leave 'em Laughing, from Liberty. We Fall Down. There's a whole bunch of them, and just in this one short block, you're going to see quite a bit. And then on the other side of the Culver Hotel, you're going to see even more. And this is, like I said, this is the mecca of the world of Laurel and Hardy.
Right now, I can see behind us. There's already a famous spot, the Culver City Hotel.
Absolutely. Once owned by John Wayne, by the way. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's a John Wayne suite you can rent, but it's quite expensive, I understand. And that's where the Munchkins stayed when they were filming The Wizard of Oz. But more importantly, to the world of Laurel and Hardy, that's Putting Pants on Phillip. They have a great scene right in front of it, and then Leave 'em Laughing is right there. They come out of the dentist's office, and it's in all kinds of Hal Roach films.
Let's go and see what we can find.
Yeah, it sounds like a great day. Okay, we're looking on the west side of Main Street, Culver City, and where you see the small G there in that door, that's actually where Laurel and Hardy's standing with Angora Love the goat. Just this side of that particular door. It's also used in another scene of Angora Love where the goat comes chasing after him, and you're going to see Rocco's Tavern. It used to have round windows in the 70s and 80s, and they remodeled it now so it's open, so it doesn't really look anything like what it was. Okay, we're now on the other side of the street, which is the east side of Main Street, Culver City, and this is where Laurel and Hardy would have been running down to the corner, which would have been Culver Boulevard intersection, and then they turn left and disappear, and they're running away from the goat again in Angora Love. But also in Duck Soup, in front of that building on the corner, that's where they jump on the bicycles and start off in Duck Soup, and then the next scenes are in downtown Los Angeles, basically. The intersection is from the 1927 film Hats Off. Laurel and Hardy actually sitting in the middle of that intersection, and they do the routine with the apparently kicking hats, and that, of course, it's a lost film, so I don't know exactly what they did. But in the background you can see the yoga shop at 9349. That's one of the ones in the background. It's also in the background of Bacon Grabbers. Laurel and Hardy turn off of Venice Boulevard onto then Bagley Avenue, and then of course across the street there's a printing shop at 9401, and that's also seen from the intersection of Hats Off. Okay, we're basically on the corner of Main Street and Culver Boulevard in Culver City. In the back you see the famous Culver Hotel. And if you look a little bit further over, this street that was Main Street actually went all the way across, and then it hit Washington, and you could go left or you could go right. But since then they have blocked that off. It's a pedestrian walkway, and actually Washington Boulevard would have split at Culver City, and that would take you up to Hal Roach Studios. Right directly across the street would have been the building in We Fall Down, and the Liberty Alley would have been there. And then on where the street went directly across would have been where Jean Harlow was standing in Liberty, and they get in and out of the cab where she's in. So that's like her first screen appearance, or her second screen appearance would have been right there. Sadly, there's no marker for her or for Laurel and Hardy, but that would have been where it was. And sadly, they had Well, it's a plus is that now you can walk along and it's really nice, and it brought Culver City back. The days where you could walk over there was in the 70s, and Culver City was not a good place to be.
Right.
So that's the good part about changing things around. Sadly, you know where she was, and I know where she is, so we'll just have to live with that for now. This would have been where Jean Harlow stood next to the cab in Liberty, and then Laurel and Hardy used the cab to change their pants and so forth. So this would have been one of her very first screen appearances.
Incredible. What a piece of history. And we're standing right in front of the Culver City Hotel right now.
That is correct, Culver City Hotel. And then further to the left here would have been the We Fall Down window that Ollie climbed out of the window. And then just a little bit further would have been the end of that building, and that would have been the Liberty Alley, where they went around and tried to change pants again.
Incredible. So where next? What are we going to see next?
We're going to go and explore the Culver Hotel a little bit more, and then what's behind the hotel.
Let's go.
Okay. We're standing directly in front of the main entrance of the Culver Hotel, and they've changed the entrance a little bit, but you can see there's a little gap here between the entrance and the brick wall, and Laurel and Hardy would have been standing right here, and the cop would have been right here in the crowd from putting pants on Philip. This holes here would have said the Harry Culver building. That's where that plaque was, and it's since been removed. But that's where that would have been.
So Stan would have been up and down here with his kilt on. This is the spot.
Definitely.
This is the door.
Yeah, at one point, this is Laurel and Hardy walk over here. Of course, there wasn't this lion here either. And then the cop was trying to get the crowd to disperse over in this area, but they would have stood right in front of here. The plaque was actually dedicated at one of the Way Out West tent banquets that we held inside the hotel in 2003. Chuck McCann and Jim McGeorge were here, and Charlie Chase's daughter, and a number of the Little Rascal kids were all at that particular banquet. And so they dedicated that and unveiled it right here. Now, where we're standing is just short of where the Washington Boulevard would have come up this direction. Now, as I had said before, it's closed off, but you would have also seen in the background this side of the hotel in We Fall Down when they're walking or that direction over there. Right. This little side street we're going to go down next.
Tell us where we are now.
We're standing in the middle of the street that would have been here back in 1927. And behind us is the Culver Hills, which would have been ladled with all kinds of oil wells and so forth, and you see in the background of all these great films. And then just over here behind us is the West End Hotel, which you're going to also see as the street sweeper comes down the street and We Fall Down. And just directly behind me is where Laurel and Hardy would have laid in the street after the street sweeper got them in the gutter, which has now been changed completely. You can hardly recognize any of the buildings there.
Okay, Bob, what's happening?
Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten me into. We're laying here in the gutter, approximately where Laurel and Hardy did, and We Fall Down. The shoe store would have been to our left here. These buildings have all been revitalized, so you can't really tell anything from them, and the street has been paved over as a pedestrian area, but this is as close as we can possibly get to where they were actually laying down in the gutter and We Fall Down.
I don't want to get back up.
I don't either. I probably can't get up.
So what's next?
Well, if we want to, we can walk down to the county hospital, which I'll probably need after this getting up. And it was also used in going bye-bye, which would be the Culver City City Hall. Okay?
Okay, let's do that.
Let's call it a treat and go that way.
Okay, let's get a couple of people to help us up.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
In a crane.
Okay, so this is a very, very prominent one for me. Instantly recognizable, Bob.
Yeah, from two films, Going Bye-Bye and from County Hospital. So just inside those doors, allegedly, Stan brought hard-boiled eggs and nuts to Ollie. And just in front of here, they came out and got in the car in both Going Bye-Bye and in County Hospital. And the shot would have been that direction, which would have shown on the corner, which is a brand new building. At that time, it was a Richfield gas station, and if you looked on the right side, you'd see the water tower of MGM Studios, which is no longer there either. It's blocked by the Sony studio building, but this is it. This is really cool. Now, in the 70s, I have original pictures of this, but when they tore down the Culver City Hall to make it bigger, because this was really a tiny city hall, they did keep all the bricks, or at least most of the bricks. I saw them stacked up over on this location behind a fence, and they were numbered. And so that I'm told, and I believe it because I saw the bricks here, that the new facade that is here is not only a tribute to what it used to look like, it actually has some of the bricks in the facade itself, which really, this is a location. Those bricks were in the film.
Aren't you going to hang him?
Yeah.
Now this part here where it says Culver City Hall, so they placed a plaque over that to say County Hospital.
County Hospital, and then they just kept it blank, I believe, for going bye-bye, because it does, the pillars make it look like a court building, and it could have been it's in all kinds of films in the 70s, not so much movies, but a lot of TV shows, Rockford Files and all that, because, you know, MGM was just over there, and, you know, this is really kind of the heart of Screenland. It's Culver City. It's not really Hollywood that made all of it, but they use this location in countless films, as they did with the Culver Hotel too.
And this car right here is exactly where Laurel and Hardy would have been.
That's exactly it. And they come, I think it's Harry Bernard that comes over and says that he's escaped and let's get out of town, and it would have been right there. Like I said, if you look that direction, you're going to see that. And in the middle of the street would have been the tracks for the trolley that's no longer here. There's a island or a medium there now.
Right.
Yeah.
This is special. This is a special moment.
It is, absolutely. The first big business house was kind of an accident. I just turned down the street to try to find a way to make a U-turn legally, and as I drove up that particular street, I noticed the long row of telephone poles, and I go, oh, that looks familiar with my picture, and then pretty soon I went a little farther, and there's the duplex. And of course that matched up really well, but I looked across the street to see if that house matched up, because when the boys are on the porch you can see that house as well, and there wasn't a chimney there, so that kind of threw a monkey wrench into it. So I went up and knocked on the door and asked those people if by some chance they had a chimney, and they said about 20 years ago we did, and we had it removed. And so that cemented that was the location. So that was a great find. Okay, we are on Dunleer Avenue in Cheviot Hills, which we're in front of the second most asked about location. Of course, the Music Box Stairs is the first, but this is the big business house in the background. It's 10281 Dunleer Avenue. When they were filming here, all you got to see was the 281. I'm thinking it might have still been 10281 at the time, and it was just funnier to take 3 of the numbers down instead of 5. It'd be too long. But you can see across the way there where it does say 10281, that's where the actual numbers were, and that's where the porch light was. And they've now, where that big plant is, has a big structure that you can't see the rest of it, but virtually the rest of it, it's unchanged. You see the little chimney on the middle side, that is shown in the movie as well, and in stills, and the vent next to the A-shaped frame is also shown there. So this is another one that virtually hasn't changed too much, and everybody's excited to see it. I hope you are too. Okay, we're still in Cheviot Hills. We're on Monte Vista Avenue. It's 2728, and just right behind us is the hospital that Dorothy Colburn worked in The Finishing Touch. It's not really a hospital. It is actually a home, and a beautiful home. It was back in those days in the 20s, and a beautiful home today. Virtually unchanged. The thin windows in the front, you see the little balcony with the windows there. Nothing has changed. The 2 thin windows on the right-hand side, the cross made for the ventilation. The door is identical. There's a peephole, and to the right there's a bigger peephole, and that is exactly the way it was in the film as well. In front of the door is kind of a little structure there, and you can't quite see it because of the growing there, but that's all still there. So this one has not changed at all. This is not only the perfect day house, it's the perfect house. This is identical to what it looked like in the film. The shutters have the same little heart shape on it. The address is the same, 3120. The little flower stands are right there. The tree was right where it was, except it was a smaller little tree. And then, of course, the window balcony kind of thing is actually the same. So this is just ideal. And this was told to me from a person that was about 8 years old and standing over on the side watching them film it. So that was how we got that.
Absolutely incredible. And the houses around are still the same, where Baldwin Cook stood with the hose,
That's right.
where the couple sat on the chair. So I think this is a good time to finish the tour.
I think you're right.
So,
this is it.
Thanks for watching. To Bob Satterfield, thank you so much for taking us on this tour.
My pleasure.
On that note, I think there's only one word left to say, and that's goodbye.
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 Goodbye. We're going now. When I was 14 years old, I joined the Way Out West tent, and I live in San Bernardino, California, which is about 70 miles from when they had the meetings. So my dear mother drove me to the second banquet, which was at the Maskers Club in Hollywood, and Hank Jones, who was the Grand Sheik at the time, kind of took this kid under his wing and took me over to meet T. Marvin Hatley and Joe Rock and Mantan Moreland and Mrs. Alf Goulding, and for the first time Lois Laurel. And on the birthday the next year, Virginia Ruth Laurel was there along with Lois. So that was my first taste of that. And by the time I turned 16, then I had my car and I ended up driving, and my mom didn't have to do that anymore. But she was a dear, and she'd always do what I wanted to do, so it was cool. And then I kept pestering Lori and the powers that be of the Way Out West tent and said, why don't you have this person? Why don't you have, and they said, why don't you run for an office? So I was still in high school when I was the vice sheik of Way Out West, and then Ken Edwardson, who was the Grand Sheik, he left, and I decided that would be a good time for me. So I was probably 19 or 20 years old as the Grand Sheik of Way Out West, and that is the tent of the stars, and in those days it really was, because we would have amazing guests, you know, Ralph Sedan, we'd have George Chandler, Billy Bletcher, Darla Hood. Spanky McFarland came when we did the convention with the other Our Gang kids. So we probably had over 100 celebrity guests as members or have attended Way Out West. And then I left as Grand Sheik for a while, and I came back. So over the years, I think it's 16 years I've been Grand Sheik. It's just kind of far to go, and then other things get in the way of life. I'm not a teenager anymore, so I can't just do that. So I still support the tent, and they weren't real keen on having a second convention. We did Hollywood 80, and that was pretty amazing because we had like 54 celebrities there, and locations were still there, and that's where I really started to look for locations. And it wasn't like you could sit in your living room and find stuff and never leave your house. In those days, stills were very scarce and expensive, a whole $3 or so, and that's quite a bit of money then. So when we screened the movie, I would take pictures of the screen and take them to Thrifties, and they'd come back, and then I'd drive up and down streets. Now, like for the Big Business House, for instance, there was an interview I heard of George Stevens, who was a supervisor on Big Business, and he was interested in what it looked like now. So he said that as he came home from work one day, he knew it was off Motor Avenue, and he found it again. And he worked at 20th Century Fox, and that dead ends in Motor Avenue, dead end to 20th Century. So I started on the other end with this picture, and actually the first street I turned down, there it was, and you can imagine the excitement of finding the big business house. And some of them were just accidents. When I turned down the first big business house, I was trying to go the other direction, so I turned right and then went down the street, and I said, my gosh, there's those telephone poles that are in here, and there's the duplex that's over there, and that was just found by accident. So sometimes I think Laurel and Hardy's driving in the back seat and made me make those mistakes so we could find them. But that I kind of did it the old-fashioned way. Now people have done amazing location stuff on computers, and God bless them for finding it for us, because I couldn't possibly do it. I only can go with what it looks like now directly. They have the resources to find, Google Earth and all that other stuff, and what it looked like back in the 30s or 40s and whatever. But we did pretty good, and like I said, I gathered all that for the Hollywood 80 convention, which we took tours, and then we did a double pratfall that had all the locations, and that was what all the work was into that. But I've been very blessed over the years to meet some amazing people. Got to know Hal Roach and Lois and Lucille and Anita Garvin. I was the first person to get Anita Garvin to come to a meeting. She has been found, but didn't ever want to come out to anything, and some people reported that she now was a fat old lady and she was embarrassed, and that's not what it was. So I wrote her a nice letter and invited her, and I said, if you're married, we'd love to have your husband. And she said, that's why I came, is nobody invited Red Stanley, who was a star in his own right, to come along with her. And we got her to the very first meeting, and then she went to the first convention, and so that was pretty cool to get Anita there.
You mentioned the big business houses. Is it true what the Hal Roach story about them getting the wrong house? Because Stan sort of refutes that, doesn't he?
Well, it's certainly a good story. If you notice, most of the people, most of the credits of the Laurel and Hardy films say story by Hal Roach. And it is possible because there was a Hal Roach employee that lived just down the street on that same street, H.M. Beanie Walker. So there could have been that. And like I said, it makes a good story. But I highly doubt it, but I'm not going to say, Hal Roach was a liar. He was a good storyteller.
Right.
But
yeah.
Maybe it was, but it's a lot of fun. I like to think it was right.
What have been the highlights for you as Grand Chic over the years? Your most memorable moments?
Well, the main things I wanted to do was put a plaque at Hal Roach Studios, and we did that during the Hollywood 80 convention. So I kind of had a bucket list of things to do. I wanted to do a convention. We did Hollywood 80, and then I did another convention just recently. So I think I'm conventioned out, because that takes a lot out of you. Getting to know some of the celebrity guests, and it's good and bad in a way, because most fans just run up and get an autograph and, oh, he was really nice or she was really nice. But a lot of those, I've been to their home, or they've been staying over the night with me, and I got to know them over the years. So their passing is like a dear friend,
right.
So that takes a toll on you sometimes. And the same with some other celebrities, especially like the Our Gang kids. That's really all that's left now are basically kids that worked in their films. Jacqueline White's still a leading lady and alive, but the rest of them, and like when Dickie Jones was trying, he wanted to come to the last convention, and his wife had fell and he couldn't make it there. And he goes, I really want to come to your shindig, and he was going to come on the last day, and he didn't show up, and I called him that evening, and we talked about why, and it was due to his wife, and he passed away the next day, the very next day. So that was really hard too. And Jerry Tucker, one of the nicest guys in the world, and so it really takes a toll. Those have been, that's the hard part of it, but the good part is I got to know those folks and share their life besides Laurel and Hardy, and it wasn't like we always just sat down and talked about that. We were friends and talked about everything, So that was really cool. I did a tribute to Hal Roach at one of our meetings, and that was huge. We had everybody that ever worked at Hal Roach come to a meeting, and that was awesome. And another big thrill was putting together some of the leading characters. So June Lang and William Janney from Bonnie, Scotland, they put together for the first time since they made the film, as the same as Della Lynn and Walter Wolf King. And that's really what's cool too, because they kind of picked it right up where they left off. So those are all been highlights, and it just is amazing, you know.
Of the many locations that you've found, what has been your most proudest location? What, you know, from the movies that when you've thought, wow?
Well, there was a discrepancy with the music box stairs, and thankfully through the stills that Dick Ban had, you could see the street sign that said Del Monte and Vendome Boulevards, and so that wasn't, but I think that big business one, when I turned around and said, you know, because that's the house. And one time right after that, I drove by on New Year's Day, and they had put their Christmas tree out for the trash man to go, and I couldn't resist it. I had to go up and knock on the door and say, can I borrow your Christmas tree? And so I took it to the front porch and got a picture of that. The owner took a picture of me holding his Christmas tree on that porch, so that was really cool too.
Now, does the owner know the history of the house?
He does. Well, at least at that time. I don't know who's owning it now, but when we'd take tours by there, he would come out and take pictures, and actually he had them on DVDs, and he'd come out and show them, and people had pictures with him, and the same thing with the excuse me, the Perfect Day home. Now, I'd like to take the credit for finding that, but one of our members, when we were looking in the 70s, he was a little boy, age 7 or 8, standing across the street and watched all that, and he told me exactly where it was. He says it's, you know, right by the Helms Bakery, and it's on Vera Street, and of course all you need to do is drive by, and there it was. You didn't need any pictures. That one is the most like it was way back when. So that was pretty cool. And then you start matching the ones across the street and all that, and then somebody finally matched the ending of the story. You know, when they go down, the car sinks and so forth, and it's just the block around. I figured it was close by, but it changed quite a bit, and I didn't really have a connection, but I'm glad they found it some as well. So that was pretty cool. And Hog Wild, I'm not sure if that was probably my most intense one, because allegedly that house didn't ever exist. They built it for the film. And I have a great story. I took Dorothy Granger, who was Tilly the maid, and she stood in front of that and told the story that there was a census taker that walked by, and they were taking a break, and he went up to the house, and of course nobody answered, and the crew said, oh, they'll be home tonight, you come by tonight, and they'll do that. And of course that was the last day of the film, and they wrapped and took the whole house down. So I'm sure the guy was quite confused when he finally showed up and there was no house there. But the way I found that was the house next door. It was when Ollie rolls off the roof, there's just a frame or two of the house that's next door, and it's very distinctive. So by finding that, and I knew while they were on the roof that the Culver Hills were nearby, and you could also see one of the water towers, and it could have been the Culver Hotel, Culver Studios or MGM, so I kind of knew it was in that area. So it was just driving up and down the streets when I finally found that Spanish kind of house, then that's what it was. And then you looked across the street and matched up all the other ones, because every other house was not there. There were vacant lots, and what was really cool is to look at the palm trees and how small they were then, and how much they've grown. Not really a whole bunch in 40 or 50 years at that time, and there was other palm trees around, so it was kind of neat that they were all there. It all matched up, and it was so I was pretty excited about finding that one, because I didn't have it all.
Now, our mutual friend Brad Farrell was telling me the other day.
Your mutual friend.
My mutual friend, the Devil's brother.
Yes.
We're still finding locations. Just the other day, he was telling me they found a spot from Flying Juices. So there's so many locations still haven't been found.
That's true, and Jimmy Wiley had found one I had looked for forever on Helpmates, and it was nowhere near where I thought it was going to be, and he found it with computer and generated stuff and all that. You can only see a little bit of what the house was, but it's amazing what they can do now and find those kind of things. Because now for Flying Deuces, he was just matching up rocks out, you know, in the Everson Ranch, and yeah, I would never thought it would have been out that way, but you know, who knows.
Bye.